Welcome to Klein's Geometry, and we're going to continue looking at lesson 3-2, where we're finding angle measures when we have pictures of parallel lines intersected by a transversal. And we're going to look at this first example. Notice we have two parallel lines. I know they're parallel because of the little arrows that show they're parallel. And I know this is 80 degrees and this is x degrees. And I want to find the measure of angle A, B, C. Well, I think about the angles I know. I know corresponding angles are congruent, and alternate interior and alternate exterior angles are congruent. Also, from the last video, same side interior angles are supplementary, same side exterior angles are supplementary. When you look at these, we can see that they're corresponding. They're on the same side of the transversal. One's inside the parallel line and one's outside the parallel line. So that means by the corresponding angles postulate, they're congruent. And we can say if this angle is 80 degrees, so is the measure of angle ABC. And that's all there is to it once you recognize these relationships. Also, I can tell these are both acute angles, and since there's only one acute angle measure and one obtuse angle measure in this diagram, they must both be 80. Okay, now let's look at the second example here. And again, I want to find the measure of angle D to E to F. So I'm looking for this angle here. And I have an expression for this other angle. And this is outside the parallel line. This is inside the parallel line. Same side of the transversal. So again, corresponding angles. And I know they're congruent. So I will set them equal. This expression, 2x minus 45 equal to x plus 30. And I like to get all my x's on one side first and then the numbers on the other. So I'm going to subtract x from both sides. And that will give me x minus 45 equals 30. Now I want my numbers on the other side, so I'll add 45 to both sides. And that gives me 30 plus 45 is 75. I know x is 75. Don't be done here, please. You want to find the measure of angle DEF. You didn't find that. You only found x. But I know DEF is x plus 30. So if I add 30 to this, I've got angle DEF. So you just do that. You say the measure of angle DEF is 75, that's your x, plus 30, and you get 105 degrees, and you have answered your question. Let's look at one more of these corresponding angles things. Here's where it can get a little tricky. Notice they gave you this angle as x and this as 118, and you want to find QRS, which is this angle right here. Well, I know this is corresponding to this, so it's 118. But I'm not looking for this angle. I'm looking for this one. And I see that they're a linear pair, this angle and this one. So I can say, all right then, together they equal 180, and QRS must be 180 minus 118. Well, if you borrow 1 from the 8, you've got 10 minus 8 is 2, 7 minus 1 is 6, and 1 minus 1, of course, is 0. So QRS is going to be 62 degrees. You might also think same side supplementary, not worry about the x, and say 180 minus 118 is 62 degrees right here. So, two ways to look at it. Okay, now let's look at example 2. Okay, example 2, the first thing we want to do is find the measure of angle EDF. And I see E to D to F right here, and they gave me x degrees. And they also said this angle up here is 125 degrees. Well, thinking about my congruent angles, first I notice they're both obtuse. So they're both the same, they have to be. And if I want a reason, well, they're opposite sides of the transversal, so they're alternate angles, and they're outside the parallel line, so they're alternate exterior angles. And they must be congruent, so the measure of angle DEF is 125 degrees. This next example, we're going to find the measure of angle TUF. So that's right here. I'm given two angles that are interior angles, and they're on the same side of the transversal. So I remember that same side interior angles are supplementary, and we can write 13x plus 23x equals 180. Now, all we need is to find x and multiply it to 23 to find the angle measure. So 13 and 23 is 36x, and that equals 180. And if I divide by 36, I get x equals 5. Not done yet. I want the measure of angle TUS. So I'm going to multiply 23 by 5 and get 115 degrees. Okay, so same side interior, supplementary. And this last one, let's say we want to find the measure of angle ABD, and we look at what we're given, and I see that they're both inside the parallel lines. I want A to B to D, inside the parallel line, but on opposite sides of the transversal. So alternate interior angles, and those are congruent angles. So I can set this expression equal to this one. 2x plus 10 equals 3x minus 15. I want all the x's on the same side, and 2x is smaller, so I'm going to take 2x away from both sides. Well, I have a 0 here now. And what comes down is 10, and that equals 3x minus 2x, which is x, minus 15. Now I need all my numbers on the other side, so I add 15 to both sides. And that gives me 25 equal to x. But I'm not done yet. I want the measure of angle ABD. So I have to plug my 25 into this expression. So angle ABD is 2 times x, or 25, plus 10. 2 times 25 is 50. Add 10 more. And you've got the measure of angle ABD equal to 60 degrees. So those are the things you're going to do when you're solving these equations for your homework. First, look at what you want to find and find it in the picture. Then, see what else they gave you in the picture that you can relate it to. Write an equation. Find x, and then plug x into whatever expression you've got for an angle and find your angle measure. Answer your question. So that's what you do on all of these. Now, there's one other thing. You might get a picture a little more complicated, like example 3. And notice in these expressions there's both x's and y's. And your goal is to find x and y in the diagram. Okay? And if you've never solved a system of equations before, you might want to look at the video right below this one on solving systems of equations, which will further explain the concept. I'm going to give you the short story on it. The first thing we need to do is write equations, and we're looking at relationships. So let's look just at this top line, and notice these two expressions are on opposite sides of the parallel line, and they both look obtuse, and they're outside the parallel line. So alternate exterior angles, and we know they're congruent. So I can write 25y, or x, plus 5y equals 125. That's one equation. Now let's look at the other lines to get a second equation. I notice, looking at these parallel lines, that these are corresponding angles. One is inside the parallel line, one is outside, and they're on the same side of the transversal. So they're congruent. And I can write 25x plus 4y equals 120. Now what I want to do is find an x and a y that'll work in both of these equations, make them both true. So we're going to relate the two equations, And we're going to do that. I noticed that both of the coefficients of both of these x terms are 25. So I'm going to subtract, and you can do anything to an equation as long as you do it to both sides. So I'm going to subtract this equation from this one, and I'm going to do each term. So I'm going to change the signs of each term in the equation. Now I have 25x minus 25x. That's just 0. I'm not going to write anything there. 5y minus 4y is y. And 125 minus 120 is 5. I've already found the value of y that will work in the equation, in the system. Now, to find x, I can use either original equation. I'll use the top one, 25x plus 5, and it was y, so I can put in what I found for y, 5, equals 125. I can solve this one to find x. I just simplified there. Now, I'll take away 25 from both sides of the equal sign and get 25x equals 100. And divide by 25 to get x alone. And x will equal 4. So I found an x and a y that works, I think. So it's best to check these things. In the first equation, 25 times 4, there's my x, plus 5 times 5, does that equal 125? 25 times 4 is 100. 5 times 5 is 25. It works. Let's look at the second equation. 25 times x, which is 4, plus 4 times 5, does that equal 120? 25 times 4, again, is 100. This is 20. 120 equals 120. So I found an x and a y that works in both. You can write your answer as an ordered pair. So we'll write the answer is x equals 4, y equals 5. So you can think of it as x, y equals 4, 5. Okay, so there's your answer. You can write it this way or this way, and the video explains the y on this way. So hopefully that helps, and enjoy your homework, and I will see you in class.